A lot of guys using just tobacco in general on the teams. Is that where you picked it up?
Yeah, riding. Yeah, actually, like racers and stuff. Some of my racer buddies are the ones that
Go pretty hard.
Yeah, it's I think just anything, and they didn't party that hard. You know, the racers couldn't, compared to us freestyle guys. So they were like nicotine was one of their go tos. You know, throw a dip in is all they could do. So
Yeah, when I think of freestyle motocross, partying is definitely up there.
yeah,
Just
it was
way of life.
yeah, it was definitely part of the game for sure.
But the regular motocross guys, they don't go that hard.
Not most of them.
Why is that?
They just train so hard. It's a different sport. You're riding for 30-minute motos, all out sprints. You know, like we're freestyle. You're doing like a 2-minute, and it's more. I don't know. Freestyle it started turning into more of a physical sport, but it really started as fucking off. You know, like where racing is serious. There's a bunch of money behind racing, sponsors and teams that are paying you a bunch of money to do it. Freestyle is more independent, so
you guys could fuck around a little more.
yeah, and not have somebody barking down your neck. So
it's almost like the ethos of skateboarding is what it sounds like.
That's where it came from.
Yeah,
you know, and snowboarding, like it's what it came from. You know, like just that lifestyle and the freedom and the freestyle. You know, doing it your way kind of deal. So
how did freestyle motocross branch out? Was it just guys that didn't
a couple
want to
like
stick on the track?
Yeah, like a few top racers, Metzger, Deegan, Linkoggle, just to name a few, and they were racers, you know, and trying to do the daily grind for racing. Kind of started just doing tricks and seeing like the BMX and snowboard and all that stuff evolve, and kind of started going after that style, and some movies came out. And it kind of blew it up into a thing where the racer guys were kind of doing their thing, and some of them broke off and kind of just started riding the hills and doing freestyle stuff. And yeah, it was all history after that. Turned it into a sport, you know. So yeah, it all started with a couple movies, really.
Was it pretty popular by the time you were getting involved? Or it was still in its infancy?
When I got involved, so I was a young kid racing.
You started at 17, right? That's when you went pro?
Yeah, like professional. That's when I started getting paid, like making money. I was still trying to be a racer though at the time. Started getting paid jumping, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is the way I'll go instead, you know? Kind of like the style of it more anyways, you know, like a little more freedom. And so, yeah, definitely more my style. And the racing thing was my original goal, but some got into freestyle after it came here local, and I was riding bicycles. I was doing BMX freestyle kind of stuff, and so could do tricks on a bicycle, and was still racing moto. And when so a local show came here up north, I went down there and asked them if I could ride, and they let me ride, and basically invited me on tour with them. So
just like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Damn.
Yeah.
And that was at 17.
At 17, yeah.
Had you been doing a lot of freestyle prior to that, or was all just motocross?
It was just motocross and BMX. Like I said, I grew up racing BMX, started on bicycles. Parents hated motorcycles. And then once I got a motorcycle, started racing motorcycles at 11. And then just doing freestyle on bicycles, like just doing tricks and whatnot. And then, yeah, basically when freestyle motocross started, I was doing those tricks on my bicycle, and was like, oh, started seeing them on videos on dirt bikes, on motorcycles, so started doing that. And then when the show came to town, I went down and asked them if I can ride, and it was history.
Those are the days they just let you, yeah, you could do it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was underage. The first one I was 16, and so I went down there, I ditched school at lunch, and went down and asked if I could ride. They're like, oh, you need your dad to sign a waiver. I had to call my dad, be like, hey, I ditched school, but they said I can ride the show if you sign. So he came down there and signed a release for me. So
how did that call go over?
It went over all right. He came down and signed it. So
I probably would have just forged the signature at that point.
Exactly,
I don't know if the whole cutting class would have been, I don't know if that would have flown.
Yeah. Yeah. He was cool.
That's the whole ethos right there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, I'm gonna go out and do this.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it was. I mean, that's how it happened.
Were you still trying to do motocross at that point too, or once you got that, you
pretty much that
over?
Summer? So like I was a junior in high school, and I went on tour and started doing shows, and that's pretty much the last time I raced was around that time. And then throughout my senior year, I started going down to SoCal and doing more shows. And so by the time I was graduating high school, I was making money, and I knew that that's what I was going to pursue, you know. My dad always said I could go back to school, you know, if I had to, chase the dream for a little bit.
And you're like, yeah, I'll go back if I need
exactly.
to.
20 years later, I'm like, should I go back to school?
That's got to be a crazy feeling for a kid in high school to be on tour doing this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why am I going to high school?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was really just, all school was just trying to get done with it, you know, just trying to finish.
Just to get back on track.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, especially if you're making money and your friends are in class and you're like, why am I sitting here right now?
Yeah.
I know what I want to do.
Yeah. It was hard to finish school, I'll tell you that much, but made it through.
Were your parents pretty supportive of you going down this path? Or like your dad, he was kind of like,
not really. I mean, I think they just saw the passion that I had for it and knew that that's what I was going to do regardless. So they had to let me, you know, it wasn't really an option. And they supported it as much as they could. Like I said, they weren't into it. They didn't ride themselves but I think that if I didn't have that to go after, any other path probably wouldn't have been a good one. So
that's how it goes,
yeah,
right?
Definitely.
You kind of find this thing that you can funnel all that energy into.
Yeah, it definitely kept me on my straight and narrow for sure compared to where I would have been.
Which is ironic because you hear freestyle motocross, you think anarchy.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, no, this is what kept me in line.
It was controlled anarchy. You know, it was something enough to keep your goals straight. You know,
was it pretty big at that time, or you guys were kind of? It was this new emerging.
No,
thing?
It was new. It was definitely in the beginning of it, and by the time like I was out of high school and started going down to like SoCal and visiting down there, it was kind of blowing up. And that's when like I was really starting to pursue it and get serious and like starting to go down there and like train and starting to pursue sponsorship and tours and stuff like that. So it was kind of right at the beginning of it. And like when it was blowing up, I was like chasing the coattails of it, you know.
Is that kind of the path you have to go down? Is it's lock in a sponsorship and then the money starts coming and you can kind of
yeah, and tours, sponsorship, mostly tours, like contests, get into contests and start showing that you can hang and be there. And, you know, obviously riding with the top guys and when there's filmers and video, you know, that's a big part of it, just magazine and video exposure. It wasn't really, the internet wasn't really the scene around that.
What year are we talking right now?
I'm trying to think like 01. I graduated high school in 01. So
this is pre
like
YouTube.
Social. Yeah, exactly. So like none of that was a thing yet really, you know, so it was a different deal. Like when I look at it now, like it would have been a whole different game compared to what it was when I was doing it or when I was starting. Like towards the end, all the social networking stuff and YouTube, all that stuff was just kind of starting to blow up and was kind of dabbling in that a little bit. Like sponsors were starting to look more into like your following on social networking more so than your contest results and stuff, you know, like that was towards the end of my career. I was definitely going that way. And now it seems like that's the majority of it, you know?
I was going to say, that's got to be like 90%
yeah,
now.
For sure, definitely.
You just blow up off one video of you doing a trick in your backyard. And
yeah,
let's sign this kid.
And there's millions of views, you know, it's the eyeballs are on it and that's what the sponsors want, so.
Yeah, then it's proof of concept, right? If you've got this following you can already bring to the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we don't have to take a chance on this kid.
Yeah,
we know he's got this backing right now.
Yeah, and it used to be like if you're getting shots in magazines or video parts or placing in contests, getting TV time, stuff like that, you know, was where the sponsors were getting their exposure. So, yeah, that was back in the day though.
Yeah, now it's just
time
TikTok.
Changed quick. Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy to look at now what it is and the way it's grown, you know.
Does it feel like that has taken away something in a sense where you had to grind a little bit more to get there?
I don't know if it's taken away. I think that the internet and the social networking is kind of giving kids a chance to show what they got and, you know, not have to go through what I went through, like trying to go and show yourself and, you know, chase sponsors down and get into contests and stuff, you know, like you can, if you're a good rider, you can put your shit online now and people see it and you can, you know, get that respect easy. So it's definitely different. I don't know if I wouldn't know if it's harder or easier, but I know the riding level stepped up huge. So, it's a different game now than it was 20 years ago.
Well, that's like most things, right? Is
Oh,
now
for
you've
sure.
got this back catalog that these kids can see, and so their starting point is so much further ahead because they're watching all the pros.
Oh yeah, like when I started, there was we didn't even think it was possible to flip a dirt bike, let alone a 450, 80 feet, 100 feet. Like it wasn't even like thought possible, and so the fact that now is what kids are watching is like the regular, like that's a go-to. If you don't flip, you're not doing freestyle, so it's definitely the speed that it evolved was crazy to watch.
If you don't flip, you're almost not going to make it now.
Yeah, I mean the flip took out a bunch of the top guys that when I started were like the top guys. They could never learn how to flip, and it retired them. Can't get shows if you weren't doing flips at one point. So
just because they didn't want to try it, or
couldn't figure it out. It's such a mental thing, more so than like a physical skill. It was just the commitment going off a ramp, being able to know that a flip's coming around blind. Is people couldn't get over the mental part of it. It was harder than anything. Like actually physically doing it is one of the easier tricks. It's just committing, to the movement. Obviously, learning that is, the key to it. But
yeah, that's got to be a mind fuck, especially as you're getting up into the higher elevation. You just got to commit. You can't psych yourself out.
Yeah, the hardest thing is just learning that the blind flip, like because you don't see anything going off the ramp, and you're looking. Or like when you're training racing, you're controlling the bike over the bars, looking ahead. To do a backflip, you're going off a ramp and yanking and committing just to looking up in the sky, and knowing that it's going to come around just by the feeling of it and how you adjust. Like it's a different concept. But that was also before foam pits and airbags, all that stuff, which now kids are starting off on those, where those weren't even around when we started, so it's definitely a different game.
So when you were going to these practice sessions and training, what did that look like for you? You just, if you eat it, you're eating it on the ground? You don't have anything soft to hit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, gradual. I was kind of thrown into it. Like, there's definitely times where you just had to say fuck it and go for it. There's a gradual, like, you could take learning steps and start on smaller stuff and work your way up. That was the evolution of it for me. But then at some point you have to know when to just say fuck it and go for it. Use your best judgment and make your, calculations. Okay, I'm going to hit it this fast, or, and then trust in your calculations that it's right, a lot of that help. I mean, riding with better people, it was a game changer. Like once I started going down south, the guys I was riding with down there, it was definitely like a huge learning curve for me. It's like little fish, big pond type thing. Like up here, I was jump everything that was around. Like kind of the top dog of that, and then you go down and ride with all these other guys, and
you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's definitely a step in a big step, so.
But probably great for your evolution because steel sharpens steel. You got to perform around
sure,
these guys.
100%. And that's what it took to get to that point, and I knew that. That's why I put myself in that situation. And you got to push yourself to evolve, and so that's what I did.
Say for, flipping a dirt bike, was that just somebody saying fuck it, or was that kind of mapped out?
Oh, no, it was mapped out for sure. Some of the first guys doing them, like Kerry Hart and Caleb Wyatt and Metzger, like they were messing around with it for a while on bicycles and mulch pits, and they had the vision and the goal of doing it, and it wasn't the right vision at first. They were doing it on this steep dirt, just step up single, where it's actually way easier to do a gap, like a further gap. It works better. But at that time, there wasn't foam pits, and you weren't going to just try one of those to dirt, So they started on smaller, steeper stuff, kind of figured it out. And then foam pits kind of came around. Had bicycle foam pits at the time. So like we were all learning on bicycles how to flip, like get that uncomfortable, back feeling that I was telling you about. And and then basically it's like a 10, 12 foot jump and then taking it to a mini bike at like 30 feet, and then a big bike at like 45, then 75, like still a gradual learning, you know.
Well, starting on a bike would be a great way to kind of shake the nerves off, because at least if you wipe out, it's not going to be as bad as
totally. That's what I did. I mean, that's kind of what we were doing. Like when I first started even thinking it was possible, I was hanging out with Metzger, and he was one of the first guys that was really starting to do them consistent. And he had went and learned on a bicycle out at Point X camp in down south. And there's a foam pit and a resi mat there. And so I'd gone out there with him a couple times and learned to flip a bicycle. And then he'd ended up building a foam pit. And so then that's when he built that, I started flipping my mini bike into that, and then my big bike. But it's different. I mean, a 10-foot flip is really fast, where like a 75-foot flip is like, it's a long, slow flip. You have a lot of blind upside down time, you know? So it's different, but it definitely is, you know, take those gradual steps, doing it as safe as you can, but you know, you still have to risk it, or like shut the brain off sometimes, but you do that in steps, and you know, like try to do it safely,
and then bring in that just fuck it attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And then that has to come in, all, you know, and sometimes that'll hurt you, you know, and you end up in the dirt, but you learn to try to use calculated, you know, risk, and be like, all right, I know what I'm doing here. And then having confidence in yourself. Like the mental game of the sport is bigger than I think anybody ever thinks about when you're not doing it. Just the nerves and, you know, what's everything that goes through your head to do it, on top of all the muscle memory and just doing it over and over and over. Like there's a lot going on. You're using your throttle right hand and front brake, and your left hand clutch, your left foot shifting, and your right foot braking, body weight, you know, like your full muscle memory, full body. So it's a lot of practice. It's one of those things, the more time you put on the bike and just get so comfortable that you're just in the zone when you're on the bike and you don't second guess or think about anything, is like the safest way to be, really. You know, people are like, oh, you just do these flips for shows and stuff. It's like, no, every day I was doing like right in the morning, do 20 flips, right in the evening, do 20, do all your other tricks, you know, like
just building the muscle memory.
Yeah. And really being comfortable is the main thing about, like, I think it makes it safer, you know, to be able to do it over and over and over, you know, not be a one-off, just hucking yourself. That's when, you know, that's when you're eating shit most of the time. And sometimes, you know, there's that situation where you're going to do that, you know, but.
Well, and if you want any sort of longevity, you can't be a one-trick pony. You can't be the guy that did one flip 5 years ago and just ride those coattails.
And the people, I mean, there is the riders that were more just like, fuck it, like going for it, and you end up hurt. Like you don't have that longevity. If you're on the couch for 3 months, you know, you're not riding shows, you're not.
And then you got to try to build up the muscle memory to come back. Yeah, and you've got the fear of last time I did this.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a fine line of the fuck it factor, you know, like you want to be smart about it, but then you definitely got to be able to shut it off, you know.
Is that how a lot of people are getting takeout, is just injuries? Just trying to do something and it's not clicking? Yeah, I mean, it happens. Usually it's the little things, you know. It'll be a day you're just putting around the track and you fall over and break an arm, you know, and you're just out doing backflips all day the day before, you know. It depends. I mean, they're dangerous, and you can, you know, little falls can hurt you easy, but there's definitely, like, trying to be consistent and not getting hurt is the way to make a living. You know, if you're hurt all the time, then you're not getting paid. So yeah, and if you're not getting paid,
find another job.
Yeah, right? Man, I would imagine that psychs a lot of guys out too, is if you're out on the track and you're seeing these guys get hurt around you trying to do the tricks you're doing. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the whole mental part of it, is, you know, it can and it's gonna happen, no matter how bad and when, you know. And watching other people get hurt, then you have to go out and ride right after that, you know, or just knowing in the back of your mind that stuff can happen it's hard to overcome, you know. That's what they say about riding just motorcycles in general, is it's not a matter of time when you get hit. it's going to happen.
And how bad. Yeah, for sure.
It's just how bad is it going to be when it does happen?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, it's there, and you try to minimize your risks by doing things the comfortable way for yourself or what you think is the best way, and there's only one way to learn. And so you do it that way,
Were you always pretty comfortable with that aspect of, it might happen, but you got to shut it out?
I mean, not really. I was always scared. I mean, it's gnarly when you think about it. And so you try not to think about like the bad things that can happen. You try to think about what you're doing to make sure you're doing everything right. And not let that, because that mental block can really end up fucking you in the long run. If you're too in your head about it, then you're not going to perform the way your body, like you've been training. So that's a huge part of the whole process for me too, is just learning to deal with my nerves and the fear, the possibility, like how do you block that out of your brain when you're trying to focus on what you're doing. So, it takes that was one of the harder things for me physically. Like athletically, I'm pretty talented, but to get out there and control your fears and your discipline, it was definitely one of the harder things about the sport, I think. And most people don't really think about it, just the nerves in a stadium when you're going out there by yourself, going to hit the jumps, do these tricks, and like not think about the crowd and everything else that's going on, and just focus on what you can do. And once you start, drifting into bad thoughts or this or that, like then you're not focused, and that's when bad shit happens. So
yeah, tuning out the crowd.
Yeah,
all those screams would be a little intense.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you're out there, like you said, you're practicing and it's just you, or maybe it's you and your team.
Couple buddies, yeah.
And then you go to a crowd setting. It's like, oh shit, pressure's on now. Because hey, if you wipe out, there's going to be a lot of people seeing it.
Yeah, and for contests, it's schedule like there's either TV time or their viewing time, so it's not on your terms and or the weather's terms. Like it can be super windy, and they're like, hey, and go, and you're like, wait, can I wait? They're like, no, go, like it's time to go when it's time to go, and so. You got to learn to deal with that, and that separates people too, just in the contest world, because it's never, you can go and practice every day in your backyard and do everything. Then you show up to a contest, the jumps are weird, the weather's weird. You got a crowd, you got TV time, travel, different bikes sometimes. Like it's there's a lot to deal with that kind of separates the backyard warriors from the guys that are able to pull off shows and contests,
And do it repeatedly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think a lot of people take that into account when they're thinking about the sport.
No, a lot of people, when they talk to me about it, they're like, oh, you're crazy. Like, just go out there and do it. And it's like, yeah, there's definitely that aspect, but there's a lot that goes into it. Like I said earlier about the people asking like, oh, like, was that the first time you flipped? Or it's like, no, it's something I do every day, all day long, and train and, and work hard. There's more going on than most people see, on the inside, even on the mental side of it,
And that would be such a challenge if you were this guy and you're going out there and you have the talent and you can perform in practice. And then when the pressure's on, you just fold.
Yeah, for sure. It's frustrating. I mean, it happened to me many a times, like training, getting in some big contests, like, NBC do tour, fly to Baltimore, show up, like nerves, track's weird or course, and like get through practice, feel all right. Your first run comes up and you fuck up your first jump and it's done. It's like you spent all this time and travel and money to get there, and then, just go fumble because of the nerves or whatever it may be, lack of experience. But that's how you learn, like that's what it takes. And the next time you do a little better, start working on, like just being able to deal with it. And experience is the best thing, that's, if you're not getting hurt and you're showing up and doing the practice and working, and then it starts coming around, it's just it's getting through it to there,
You just got to keep showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to take your beatings and then get back on the horse.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was watching a video of you flying through the air with Meta Militia for the Black Friday film. And you're just, I mean, it was insane. I'm sitting here watching it thinking, oh my God. And if you wipe out, holy shit.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, you guys are just launching through the air.
Yeah, a bunch of that stuff, you're doing everything you can to make sure you're not wiping out, you know, and that's just because some of that stuff, you know, like 200 foot, like as fast as your bike will go, some big jumps, and that's all really just comes down to the same thing, experience and time doing it and practice. Like the more you're on your bike, the more comfortable you feel, everything becomes like second nature. And that's when you have the confidence and are able to do that stuff without thinking too much about it or getting in your head, and just being able to feel it and feel the dirt and your bike and the wind and just be in the zone where it's like when you're at that point, sometimes you don't even second guess anything, or you're not even thinking about the possibilities of what could happen because things just flow, you know? And that's the feeling that we're all chasing, really, you know, like that's when you're doing 200-foot jumps and just greasing them and everything's smooth, it's like swooshing a 3-point shot, but a 200-foot jump, you know, but it's that feeling, yeah. But then when you land, it's smooth as butter, and you know, when you do it right, it feels good, and that's what we're going after the whole time. So
it's got to almost be a meditative state where you're kind of shutting when you finally do send it.
Oh,
and you're
for
floating
sure.
through the air.
And I think that's as a kid, that's what drew me to it. I think so much is because you're just in your own head. You know, you put on your helmet, and even when you're riding with buddies, you're in the zone. You're so focused on everything else going on that it gets you away from everyday worries or stresses or whatever it may be. You know, it's definitely a meditative state in a way. You know, it's the opposite in a way too. But as far as just escaping the real world, and you know, I think it's a therapy of sorts for sure,
and a high that's hard to beat.
Yeah,
once you go through it and you land it, you're chasing that high.
Yeah, which is interesting. Like I never even as a kid thought about it as like adrenaline, you know, or anything, but definitely that feeling of like going fast, you know, or like I said, doing something smooth, or like learning a technique better, you know, it's just like clicking off those little like steps of getting better and better is what kind of motivated me personally, is doing something or being scared to do something, then doing it and being like, yeah, you know, like conquering little goals the whole time is what motivated me and kept me going for sure.
When you started out, what kind of tricks were you guys doing?
Like very first, it was like heel clickers where you like throw your feet up above the bars, knacks and cans, no handers, all that stuff were like all BMX tricks that kind of went to dirt bikes. Like what I was saying earlier, when I started, it was all that. And then as like BMX evolved, dirt bikes started kind of catching up and right there. Like people would start doing seat grabs and Supermans on a bicycle, and we'd start doing them on our dirt bikes. And yeah, pretty much just evolved with that to anything as far as jumping off the bike, grabbing the seat, letting go of the bars, feet going through the bars. Now there's body varials where guys are spinning above the bike. Obviously the flips and 360s with the bike. And yeah, it's evolved a lot. Like it started off basically as one-handers, just taking your hands off, kind of showboating at the races, you know? And yeah, now people are doing triple flips and 360s and body varials and everything else. So
the body variables one, that's what freaks me out, because it seems like there's so much that could go wrong.
Yeah,
as soon as you're off the bike in the air.
Totally, because I mean, when you're holding onto the bike, like I said, flips are almost easier than like a bunch of the like seat grab, let go tricks where you're jumping off the back of the bike, letting go, getting back on. Because a flip, you still have all four limbs on. You can, you know, unless you're doing a super flip or something, but just a standard flip, you can still control the bike as much as possible with the throttle and brake. And so some of those, the body varials and some of the other like technical grab tricks and stuff, those in my opinion are harder and more technical than just a standard flip.
Yeah, and the mentality aspect starts kicking in there too, because now you're off the bike.
Yeah, for sure. It's full commitment at a bunch of those. You know, you can't half-ass those.
So at what point in your career when you're starting out did it start ramping up like that? When people started doing the flips and realized, oh, we can take this to the next level?
It was pretty early at all. Really, the sport evolved so fast that I can't even think of when they started doing flips. I'm not sure the year. But once like one guy did it, everybody started doing it. And then it was like I said, they started off just on a single, a step up lip. And once it turned into like gap jumps, like 45 foot and then 75 foot, which is like the standard show or contest ramp, then it was either you're doing it or you're not competitive. And that's, I was kind of like, when I had to make the decision, I'm like, well, I guess this is something that I'm going to go for and try to make it happen if I want to keep my name in the game, So, and then as soon as you're flipping consistently, then it's like, oh, flip, take a hand off, flip, take two hands off, flip, grab the seat, just grab the seat, kick your feet off, it's all just the slow, evolution of the tricks. But, yeah, it all happened pretty fast, not that slow. People, there's a bunch of super competitive dudes that are all trying to one up each other. And so like you're riding in the backyard with four of the top guys in the world and everyone's trying to be the best, it's all fun, shits and giggles, but it definitely is competitive, friendly too. So
it's interesting how once one person breaks that barrier, cans wide open.
Yeah.
And everybody, the rate of expansion just is insane.
No, definitely. And I mean, that happens in everything, right?
They said that with running. I think it was the 5-minute mile. They were like, nobody can do this.
One guy did it, then within like a week, there's 10 guys doing it. Yeah. It's the restraint of your mind, telling you what's possible and what's not. Yeah, exactly. And then in fear, especially in like a good example in the sport of freestyle, it's just, overcoming fear and understanding that something can happen. And once you do, it's like, oh yeah, it's easy. Actually, everyone can do it, So yeah, it's interesting to look back on,
and to be a part of, not just to look back on, but to be in the forefront of seeing this thing evolve in that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's, I look back on it and trip out sometimes just thinking about it, or looking at old magazine stuff or stories, just telling stories to the kids and stuff it's funny. But it just flowed. It all happened, and was just riding the wave.
It'd be interesting if it had started during the internet age where YouTube was already big and this sport is just kind of emerging. Because imagine the footage. I would imagine some of your best jumps nobody's probably seen but you.
For sure, totally. The little video I do have is mostly outdated stuff, or there's some like right towards the end of my career that there's a couple videos out there, but there's so much stuff that wasn't video, or recorded. So, I'd imagine the growth of the sport, the speed, how fast it grew would probably be even faster, but it, I think the internet's been a good thing for the sport, for watching other people evolve, seeing what someone on the other side of the world's doing, you're like, oh, so that's possible, huh? Or they're trying that. So you used to have to wait till X Games once a year and see what the people had been working on,
And now you can just scroll TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
10 of the craziest stunts you've seen and think, exactly. Now I got to try to do something.
Yeah, right.
Did you ever watch somebody wipe out or have a wipeout where you thought, oh, I don't know, maybe I need to pump the brakes on this?
Yeah, every time someone else, when you see other people crash, it actually is worse than when you do it yourself. Like anytime I'd have bad crashes, you're more just kind of frustrated with getting hurt rather than like the actual pain of it. Just because you've worked so hard to get where you are and you know that that's going to take 3 months or however long for your bones to heal and have surgery, whatever it may be. So watching other people go down is actually harder for me personally, just because, I don't know, I guess being from the outside looking in, where in your head, you're focused on your goals and what you're trying to get to. So, definitely losing friends, like I had probably like 5 of my close friends die doing it. And those ones definitely sit you down for a second. You start questioning what, if you want to still pursue it, but you've always known that's possible, you know, like you know it's a possibility, but then when it happens, you're like, you know, it hits. So
it's almost like that room that you don't want to enter in the back of your mind. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of got to shut the door on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not ignore that it's possible, but not.
That's the thing. Exactly. You can't just ignore that the risk is there because you want to be aware of it, but not focus on that. You know, you want to keep your head clear of all the negative stuff, so you can focus on doing what you're trying to do. You know,
that's almost like a hard cap on how fast it can change too. In a way, is that if you don't land the trick, you're going to be out of commission for X period of time.
Yeah.
Whereas if there was no threat of bodily injury, you guys could just
for sure, just go for it. And that's something that's, I think, also changed the evolution of sport recently, is like airbag landings and foam pits and stuff. You know, like before those, like you're always jumping to dirt or even steel landings. You know, now they have the airbag landings that I've seen guys that fully have bailed, landed, like, you know, full Pete Rose slide and got up and walked away, you know, where if you do that on dirt, you're sticking to the dirt and getting ragdolled, you know. So it the new setups are safer, but it's almost, yeah, it's definitely let people push a little more because the consequence is a little less, but still there, you know. It's definitely not safe now.
Do you think that helps with that mindset framing in a way, is because now you can send it as hard as you want, and there's not, I mean, if you land on an airbag, you're not going to die.
Yeah. I don't know, because I haven't jumped airbags. But
you haven't jumped airbags?
I've never landed. They just
they almost have it too easy, man.
I know, right? That's what we joke about that sometimes, like, oh, kids these days. But I mean, there is still risk. Don't get me wrong. It's you can still definitely get hurt, and I mean, I don't think like me personally, I would still have the same fears riding to airbag, you know, like I don't think it would change my mentality that much, but maybe that's just because it's ingrained in me, the consequences of eating shit on dirt or on a ramp, you know?
Well, and you're not going to have the airbag when it's time to actually perform.
Yeah, well, they're using airbag landings now. So instead of like a big steel landing or dirt landing, it's a big airbag that fills up, and they're land with a like plastic hard surface on it, so they can land on it and ride off.
In competition?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
whoa.
Yeah. So that's, and it's allowing people to do gnarlier stuff, you know. Definitely the best trick contests now are like triple flips and like 720s and, you know, stuff that we wouldn't be doing if it was dirt still, you know. So, but then at that level, you know, there's super high consequence still, even to airbag landing, you know, because you're still going so high and there's so much momentum behind it. So
was that out of a desire to kind of make it safer for people
I think
getting
so.
pretty beat up?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, when you're doing something risky, that's going to be that risky, like making it as safe as possible is still the goal, you know? Like even with dirt landings, like we'd always try to put a safety deck on the landing. So if you did miscalculate and come up a little short, you're not just backsiding a jump, you know, like, so you make it as safe as possible, or ideally want to, you know?
Yeah, ideally want to,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Help the guys out.
Goal.
I think it's obviously probably better for the guys in the sport if they're not getting beat up all the time.
And if riders are comfortable, then they're able to push themselves more. And so it goes full circle for sure.
So you had these steel landings, that's what you guys were jumping over?
Yeah, for mobile, like for shows that we would like do in parking lots or like even like fairgrounds and stuff. They started making steel landings, or basically like a lowboy trailer with like a big steel, you know, down face to it. They put the ramps and bikes in it, tow it wherever, pull it out in a venue, unfold it, and then set up the takeoff ramp and be able to jump to that, instead of, because originally back when I started it was only dirt, you know, so you'd have to get 20 dump truck loads of dirt, shape a landing, and then it's, you know, hopefully the dirt's good, it's not muddy or sandy, you know. So then when they started using mobile landings, it opened up a bunch of opportunities to do shows in parking lots and places where they weren't, you know, where you couldn't usually. And then now it's evolved into airbags they unfold a huge airbag, turn on a generator and a fan and pump the thing up, you know, so.
It's like a flat inflatable.
Yeah, exactly.
The steel landing doesn't sound that great.
No, they weren't. I mean, there was some that were good, but they, I mean, the risk on those is as high as anything, you know, and they weren't always smooth landing. Like even when you greased them, perfect spot, like you're kind of bouncing down a little bit still, but it was just the convenience of them. You know, you're able to go do a show anywhere, like literally pretty much. If you had a 70-foot run in, you could set a ramp at a 70-foot gap and have a 40-foot run out, like about 200 feet. You could set up do a show anywhere.
So really opened up the venue portion of that.
Yeah, for sure. For demos, you know, just for demos for companies, schools, anything really, monster truck shows, all that stuff.
Which back then was probably the name of the game, is just trying to get people to see it.
Yeah,
a lot eyes on the venue.
I mean, even the sport now too, it's a lot of the, you know, there's only contests here and there, and most of the money and like consistency in it was just doing demos, like shows for events, concerts. I mean, you name it, birthday parties, like, you know, really if people have enough money to pay, then, you know, it's dancing monkeys, you know, coming, they throw coins at us and we do tricks, you know. But yeah, I was always, that was the main, you know, income, is just doing random shows like that pretty much.
Is that still hold true today?
Yeah, for the most part. Like some of the bigger tours are like on concert tours, Supercross. Some of my buddies are doing demos in the parking lot during Supercross for Monster. So that's definitely, I think, like just doing side entertainment stuff has always been a big part of the sport.
Are sponsorships still, are they bigger nowadays?
I think there's less of them available, but more money in the ones that are there. You know, the people that have a good sponsor these days are getting good money for them. But there used to be a bunch of little like companies would be throwing money around, you know, just to get their names out there on your bike and stuff, you know.
Like what we have here locally with Redwood Acres, where you could just sponsor the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Some mom and pop business putting out some
but like a shoe company or a clothing company, you know, if they know that you're doing this tour and it's this crowd of people, you know, then you're running their product and putting their logos on your bike, then all those people that are at those events that you're going to be riding are seeing their logo, you know. So once again, that was like a way that social networking and the internet's changed, you know, because that used to be like if you had a busy schedule all year and you're doing this tour and that tour and these shows and then this contest, like sponsors see that and they're like, all right, that's where we're going to put some of our advertising money into, you know.
When you're going through this and you're getting sponsors and stuff, when did the big ones start to come along? Because I saw that you were sponsored by Rockstar. And this was back when Rockstar was Rockstar.
Yeah, those were like I started getting, well, when I first rode that show here, it was right around the time I was starting to get like A sponsors where they're giving me free gear and stuff like that. And then my paying sponsors, they were actually paying a salary, probably didn't start until like right around when I was flipping maybe and started getting paid good. As far as like salary from sponsors, and then so that was probably, shoot, I don't even know the years, but probably about 10 years into my career started like getting good sponsors and salary, you know, which takes a lot of the weight off the shoulders because you're not relying on just shows and contests to make the income. You're actually getting a monthly check. So, you know, if you do get hurt, you still, for those couple months, will still be able to pay your rent and all that stuff, you know.
That's got to be a nice transition.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, that was the main goal, you know, to get at least a couple good paying sponsors. So, and then it really takes the weight off of a bunch of other stuff, you know, just you can focus on doing what you need to do and not worry about making money the next week, you know.
Yeah, I gotta travel across the country to go get this one, then be back.
Yeah, exactly.
Frees up a lot of time.
Yeah, and you kind of get to pick and choose what you're actually doing, you know, maybe not ride that shady fair, you know, that you don't want to go and do,
yeah,
but need the $1,000. Yeah, so it, yeah, that's definitely the paying sponsors are the way to go.
And when you've got all those paying sponsors, are you still doing tours? They're just higher level tours?
Yeah, and or for that sponsor, like for Rockstar, like they had the Mayhem Festival, which is like a metal music, like Slipknot, Korn, all like the biggest metal bands. And so they sponsor events like that too. So then a lot of times they'll put you on those shows. Like I did that 3 years for like 3 months a year on a tour bus every day, riding a show, you know, in the midday, a couple times throughout the day, you know, when there's side bands going on and stuff, then it's like side entertainment. So all the concert goers can turn and like, then we'll do a demo, you know, so the whole crowd gets to watch that while the next band's setting up, then they go on, you know, so a lot of times with those paying sponsors, they bring opportunity for more shows and, you know, want to do stuff like that too. So,
which is great for you guys. Again, you're getting more eyes.
Oh yeah.
All these people going to this concert.
Yeah.
And, hey, what is this? What's on the side here?
And knowing that, you know, like for Rockstar, for example, that they had these tours and stuff going on. So by getting a ride with them, then they're going to it's going to bring shows to your plate too. So.
What a trip.
Yeah.
I went to I don't know if it was a supercross event, but they had motocross and then had freestyle at the end down in San Francisco. They did it at the baseball arena down there.
And the freestyle guys jumped on the supercross track. They brought ramps out there.
Yeah, they had it like sectioned onto the side or something because it was all dirt. Yeah, they didn't have any steel frames or anything like that. It was all just a dirt track. But then I don't remember if they were moving it towards the end, they started making the mounds, or if they were just closer to the edge than the actual track.
So they do that sometimes at the supercross. They'll do them in the parking lots, like for the pit party, like before supercross, you know, when the crowd starts to show up, they'll do some shows in the parking lot. And then sometimes they'll do them like in like opening ceremonies or like at halftime, you know, pull ramps out there and set up and, you know, just keep eyes on the show and keep people entertained.
Yeah, it was a trip to see. I think they did it at the end and they brought out, you know, they had these fire pits off to the side that were shooting flames up and these guys are
pyrotechnics and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's always part of it too. Some of the shows were full, like one of the tours I did, Nuclear Cowboys, was put on by Feld Entertainment and like produced by the people that do Disney on Ice, and it was full choreographed, like pyrotechnics, dancers, the full
9 yards.
Yeah, so there's that too, which was a whole different gig in itself. You know, you're doing choreographed tricks at a certain time, you know, there's a whole show to it, you know. So there's really a bunch of different angles that like freestyle motocross kind of went off. There's like riding out in the hills, just videoing, you know, shooting photos, doing demos at, you know, fair events like monster truck, stuff like that, doing choreographed shows, doing like concerts, contests, you know, there's, like I said, there's really a bunch of little fingers that you could go off doing that. So
yeah, it's interesting how it's evolved in that way.
Yeah,
you've really got it's a sport, but it also is this
just side entertainment.
Yeah,
like people just like to look and go, "Whoa, what the fuck are those guys doing?" You know. So it which is why it makes it attractive to people, you know, because you don't have to be a rider to necessarily like trip out watching somebody do 80-foot backflips in the parking lot, you know, like Joe Schmo could be walking by and stop and look at that. And, you know, so promoters realize that, and just getting people to events, you know, like it grabs eyes and attention for sure.
Yeah, you don't need any experience to think, holy shit.
Yeah, to watch and be like, well, that was cool.
Fly through the air.
But then people like that don't know like the technicalities of a trick, like a certain trick that's super hard. And you know, they see it and they're like, oh, don't really know what's going on. And then a guy does a standard flip and they're like, holy shit, you know, like, so it's funny. You can definitely tell that different crowds would be into certain stuff more so than others, you know, as far as like more technical little tricks compared to just like bigger, like visually pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine how many guys went to a motocross event or a freestyle motocross event and then went out, bought a bike and just broke something.
Yeah.
Broke an arm, tried to go off a small little berm or something and just.
Yeah, I think it usually happens quick though. Like they see it, you know, and go and get a bike and
And unless the bike's on Craigslist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not for me.
Yeah, not gonna work.
That goes back to people not really seeing what really goes into it, like how much time is put in the the discipline it takes to get to that point.
Was that a challenge for you, trying to get people to realize, or I guess across the sport in general, just trying to get people to understand the technicality of it? Yeah, it's this really cool thing, we're flying through the air, but there's a lot on the back end of this that people aren't seeing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it, like you were saying, it does like appeal to just random people. So you didn't really have to like tell anybody, oh, this is hard. Like they see you jumping, they think it's cool, and in awe about it. I just don't think a lot of people understand like how calculated everything is. They just kind of think you're some nut job out there flipping yourself around,
Evil Knievel.
Yeah, exactly. So, which was a whole different thing, like just being a stunt man compared to like more of an athlete. I think it's two separate deals. It's not a once a year like big jump. It's a everyday training and making sure you're perfect. So
yeah, like you were saying earlier about the guy who's, oh, is this your first backflip?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, man, I've been doing, I did 40 today.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been doing them since I woke up this morning.
Yeah, which is what makes you comfortable doing it. I don't think it's not safe to do it anyway, but that, so.
Yeah, especially when so much is at stake.
Yeah.
You don't want to just dilly-dally and
no, for sure. And
not ride for a couple of days and then say, okay.
That's literally like when I was at my peak, like if I didn't ride for a week, like the first day back, I'd be like, all right, like kind of take it easy at first, like you get in that routine of riding every single day, maybe take like a day off here or there just to let your body rest. But it's that you can, like that comfort level has to be there to be able to be confident, so you take a couple days off or injury or anything, and it definitely you need to approach it a little slower when you're first getting back.
What does your schedule look like when you're on tour at this high level, your training schedule?
Just training or for shows and everything too? Training
and shows.
So it depends. Like I said, like for that Mayhem Festival, you're on a tour bus for 3 months and you're riding 3 shows a day pretty much every day. So you're pretty much, that's enough training just in itself, riding that much every day at home and like getting ready for contests and stuff. Wake up in the morning and ride, then go to the gym and train, rest in the afternoon, then ride again in the evening. Probably like 4 days a week. And then weekends, usually a show on a Friday or Saturday or something. Same thing.
Are a lot of guys hitting the gym?
Yeah. At first, I think not as much. Like I said, it was kind of the racers that were just kind of getting out of it, and it wasn't really as competitive. Once stuff really started getting competitive, people realized the importance of, working out, being flexible, being strong. Like if you're frail and you're crashing, then you're going to get hurt easier if you're not in good shape, So it definitely, I think people started figuring out that it's beneficial for sure to be in good physical shape.
Well, especially just the wear on your body, even if you're not wiping out.
Yeah, no,
you'd want to be
sure.
in shape.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just the impacts and everything. You feel those, and the stronger you are, the less it's gonna impact you. So
yeah, that repetitive wear's got to take a lot of guys out too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's
just
not
joints going out.
Yeah, and it's a young man's sport for sure. There's not many guys doing it. Like really past 40 is like. There's like one guy, there's like a couple that are right there, and it's definitely a young, like from the late teens to early 30s is kind of the zone there, which I think is mostly just body wear and tear, but then also mentality. You start getting older and wanting to calm down a little bit, definitely.
Start wising up to the rest.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I mean, it was for me personally, when I started like thinking about getting out of it, it was just the traveling and, the lifestyle, and, it's just a lot to even be traveling that much, let alone having to deal with the riding aspect and the injuries and everything else that comes with it. It's a lot on you.
Was it hard kind of coming to that decision?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. it lingered for a while. Like I started kind of getting burnt out and but then not knowing what I wanted to do really. And always kind of was just like, oh, like, in the end of you're not going to do this forever, have a good run at it for 10, 20 years. And I always just assumed I'd get a job in the industry afterwards, but by the time it started getting to that time, I was over the industry and the traveling, I wanted to come back up here and get
chill
routine
out.
and lay low, raise the kids. So
yeah, especially having kids. That's gotta be the time commitment of that is just
for sure.
Start weighing things different.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there is the fact that like for a lot of it, like when my 12-year-old was born, I was traveling just weekends. So I'd leave like a Thursday, write a show, a Friday, Saturday, wherever the show was, come back Sunday. Then you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at home, So still like getting decent time at home, but then a tour, then you hop on like Mayhem Fest and you're on a bus for 3 months, So there's, it's definitely harder once I started having kids. You start looking at the risk factor a little more and just being home for them,
You mentioned the industry. Do they take care of you guys pretty well?
Yeah, it seemed that's why I had always thought like, oh, I'd get a job in the industry, because
kind of stick around.
Yeah, because a lot of writers kind of fall into that at the end for one of their sponsors or like management or something, or for promoters. Like you make all these connections throughout your career, and know the industry, So it's a pretty smooth transition, I think, for if people end up wanting to do that. But it seems like a lot of people don't. It's kind of. You just get burnt out on it, And when you're going that hard at it every day for so long, it's nice to kind of do something new, change it up.
Yeah, when you're living life at 110%.
Yeah, for sure.
Might be nice to kind of dial it back, at least to like 85.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stick here for a couple weeks.
Yeah, 100%. That's how it was for me anyways.
But it's still hard to, finding this thing at such a young age and sticking with it and then trying to say, okay, maybe now's a good time to dial it back.
It was a gradual thing for me, kind of. It was you kind of start like, looking at other options and keeping doors open, trying to figure it out. But definitely like that transition from traveling every weekend and being that guy, to the next step, the next phase of life was definitely a hard one, It wasn't easy, and sometimes I still question it. I'm like, oh, I could go ride shows and go do, like it's still in the back of your mind, but I'm happy where I am.
Yeah, it seems that itch is always going to be there in some form.
Yeah,
but you could almost get caught up trying to scratch it.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Just
break
your body.
Yeah, like I said, I have shows that'll come up like in Reading or somewhat close, I'm like, oh, I could go and ride that, but then have it written for so long. And I think that if I did go, I'd want to ride, at the level I was before.
Push it all the way.
Yeah, exactly. Just that self-control. I don't know if it would be there. So I kind of just got to slap the wrist and back off a little bit.
Are you still doing a lot of riding?
Not a lot. I try to. It's hard with work and the kids. Took
more
the
like
kids
BMX stuff?
Yeah, mountain biking. Been doing a bunch of mountain biking, just to stay in shape, and it's fun. You still kind of get that rush. And then as far as moto, not that much. But like now, my kids are getting to the age that they're into it, and so I'm definitely going to start taking them out more, and they're all pumped on it. So
yeah, we have a pretty good mountain biking scene, but it doesn't seem like we have. The motocross element isn't there because where would you do it at?
Yeah, exactly. And that's always been the problem growing up is there wasn't really a moto scene at all. Or mountain bike, which now mountain bike is blowing up around here. There's a bunch of super good spots. And the moto is all still kind of private. There's not even a public track, in Humboldt. So it's hard to get into. You're riding trails out, in the hills or private track for the most part. Then you got to travel. So that was always a hard part growing up too, is you're going to Oregon or Central California or Nevada just to go race, Yeah,
it seems like we have the perfect spot where something like that could be built.
Yeah, you would think.
Got the terrain.
Yeah, you would think so. But
and a ton of people have dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Just go rip the river bar.
Yeah, exactly. Go ride in the woods. Yeah, but there's been multiple efforts to make it happen. There used to be a track Phillipsville growing up that we all raced at, but it yeah, I don't know. I guess there's not enough interest to make it worth anyone's while.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
I was reading the other day that we're getting an RC track here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I just started laughing.
Yeah. Well, now, like I said, the mountain bike thing is blowing up. And they're building like pump tracks and bike parks and stuff all around, which is awesome. Because that was, like I said, before I got a moto, I was all into BMX. So I think that that's a super good thing. And as far as a moto, I don't know, like Phillipsville got shut down because of the sound. You know, people didn't want to have to hear it. So that might be one of the issues. Now they're making all these electric bikes, so maybe that'll change it. I don't know.
Have you ridden those?
Yeah, I have a little bit. Yeah,
Pretty
a couple of
insane.
them. Yeah, they're crazy. They're fast. They're really
Some of those
good.
get up and go.
Yeah, and it's crazy the speed that those electric motors have. And they're just getting better, and they're getting better fast.
I was watching a video of these guys who bought those Suron bikes,
Mm-hmm.
and they modded them somehow and got the top speed up to like 80 or 90 or something.
Yeah, they
rip.
put aftermarket
cruising.
suspension
Yeah.
on them, hitting big jumps and stuff.
And silent.
Yeah, exactly. Quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing. It's happening. Some people don't like it because they're electric, you know, like.
You need the motor.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely one of the things, which I don't think that'll ever go away. You know, people always have two strokes that are smoking and loud and, you know, but I think that the electric bikes are definitely, that's where the technology's going. So, and they're good now. They're just going to get better.
Do they have any electric dirt bikes?
Yeah.
There been a push for that?
There's a couple. Alta was one brand and they went out of business, but they had like a pretty competitive electric bike that was like comparable to 450s. And then Stark Barg is now a new electric company. The bikes just got released and they're like starting to race them in the pro and the 450 class. I think they did in the Paris Supercross a couple weeks ago. And guys are riding them in freestyle at shows, Nitro Circus shows and stuff. So that those ones look fully legit and sound. All the tests I've seen on them and stuff I have nothing but good stuff to say about them.
It's up to snuff.
Yeah.
Is there, when you're doing some of these tricks, is there any limitation on the bike? Or once you've got a 450, you're solid.
Yeah, I mean, you can, even a 250F, like we used to ride 250 two-strokes. They're basically comparable to a 450 four-stroke. And with that, with a 250, you can pretty much jump anything that is jumpable, you know, and same with the 450 now. And then some guys ride the 250 four-strokes. It's a little slower, but when you start getting into like tight quarters, like in arenas, we'd ride shows in basketball arenas, you know, like the Arco Arena and stuff, really tight quarters. So you need that power, that quick get up and go to actually get over some of the jumps, you know. But yeah, basically a stock 450 these days and cut some grab holes in it and stiffen up the suspension, you're good to go.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it looks like if they go electric. I can't imagine they'd go all electric.
Yeah,
like
it's hard to tell. I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, those things are fast, you know, if not faster than 450s. So
and probably insanely light.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the weight's similar. I think it's the power delivery that's different, which is a big thing with the bikes, you know, just the gyro effect of the engine and the wheel spinning and all that. But then on the electric bikes, it's adjustable. So you can actually like add engine braking that's not actually engine braking, but you're adding that you know, that compression to it. So I don't know. It seems like once people figure it out, it's going to be impossible not to be the best thing to be riding, you know.
You're going to almost have to adapt.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless it's the battery technology isn't quite there, and then they got to stop a show for 40 minutes to charge.
Yeah.
And then people are like, no, this is not. We're
yeah,
going back.
for sure. I know that in racing, that is something that they've talked about, is just like to be able to make it through a full moto at full, you know, full throttle.
Yeah, because if you're out there riding, your bike dies.
Yeah.
That's going to turn some people off.
So I'm not too sure how long they last or what that the weight or the charging time or anything, but I'm sure we'll know soon.
Are there, when guys are getting out of the field, is there like a space for coaching? Do you guys do that?
Yeah, for sure. A bunch of racers do that. I'm sure there's a little freestyle. That was the thing I thought about doing, especially locally, but there's no venues to do it at up here, for me personally, but there's definitely that possibility in guys that do it. There's a lot to be taught, like there's so much that goes into riding a dirt bike, and doing it correctly and safely. And, there's so much stuff to improve constantly, that I think coaching is especially for racers these days, is like a key factor. All the up and coming kids all have coaches and have somebody that's been there and done that and can teach you this, and technique's always changing and evolving along with the bikes and the tracks. So to have somebody that's been doing it for a while to give you their 2 cents just helps you, get that much better that quick.
Yeah, a little experience on the back end goes a long way.
100%.
Did you guys have coaches?
No.
Yeah, kids today, I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we were just winging it so much back then, Definitely hanging out with and riding with better people, like I was saying, just going down to Southern California and riding with the top guys. You're watching, you're learning, you're, being able to push yourself and see what's possible. So you're coaching yourself or getting tips from them. Obviously you're all friends and wanting to help other guys learn stuff and watch them progress too. So, I'm sure there's probably some guys doing some freestyle coaching now, because there's the basics that, like, for a kid to learn to go out and hit a ramp, do grabs and flips and stuff. There's definitely coachable technique there that could make things go way smoother,
Well, technique and mindset.
Yeah,
I would imagine you'd be able to provide some insight on just overcoming that mental barrier.
100%, which is huge. Like, that's 50%.
It's a big portion of it, yeah.
For sure. So, yeah, I learned all that stuff the hard way, which I'm not complaining about. It was part of the experience. But you definitely, and you learn quick when everything's on the line, and you're pushing yourself and the consequences are high. You don't want to make those mistakes. It's not like falling off a skateboard, you're 80 feet in the air and you're breaking femurs when you eat shit, so, you try to learn quick.
You have to.
Yeah.
Was that kind of why the ethos of like signing a team or sponsoring a team kind of came into play, is because then you have all these guys kind of pushing each other?
Yeah. I'm sure that it helps in bringing younger guys in with older guys, like kind of bringing the new generation in with the older guys to, kind of help and not coach, but just to, to guide and mentor definitely is a big part. I feel like all sports, or all action sports, individual sports, have that aspect to them where the older guys always end up bringing in some younger guys under their wing and showing them the way a little bit,
Which is good for everybody.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because then you got the younger guys pushing you guys a little harder, and you're kind of rubbing off on them.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
Is there anything equivalent to like what the metal militia was to something today? Or is it kind of more solo sponsorship?
Yeah, it's kind of, solo. There's not really like a team necessarily. There's like Travis Pastrana has his Nitro Circus tour. It's kind of a set group of guys that are doing all sports, but from like skateboarding to BMX, moto, and they kind of have their tour and stuff that they have going on. There's just like sponsors, maybe like Monster has like their group of guys doing all supercrosses and stuff. Red Bull has their events going on, like kind of it's just those main sponsors in the industry kind of all are kind of running their separate programs, it seems like.
It's interesting how it's almost a requirement. If you've got an energy drink, you gotta have some guys out there.
They have the money, a lot of kids are buying that stuff these days, so They got the money to pay.
Yeah, I went through my phase. I was down in, I mean, I've got monsters in the fridge now, but there was a period in time where I was killing 2-3 monsters a day.
Yeah,
and then you wake up one day and you're like, man, this might be a problem.
For sure. More information starts coming out, like how bad they are for you.
That was back when they would just have those like monster branded trucks, and just hand them out in the back. Yeah, hey, try this.
For sure.
Just to get people hooked.
Yeah, no, totally. And it worked,
Worked great.
They worked. I went through the same thing, drank a bunch of them, obviously being sponsored by Rockstar, and then got to a point where I was like, oh, I'll just take the waters, the Rockstar waters, or the iced coffees, drank those for a little bit. But yeah, it's not good to be drinking that shit that often. So
yeah, they're going to have a commercial one day, like those mesothelioma commercials. If you drank this, if you had this number of energy drinks, you might want to call us.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, Julian, thanks for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun talking.
Yeah, cool.
We'll definitely have to get you back on, do it again. Crack some beers.
Good. Yeah,
take some Zen. Yeah. Do you want to plug all your stuff where people can find you? Anything like that?
Jules Deuce on Instagram, JULSDUS. And besides that, on Facebook, nothing much but family and fishing and dirt bikes. So yeah, it's different lifestyle these days.
Different speed.
Yeah, but I like it. I'm happy where I'm at. Had a good run doing what I did, and walking away from it literally and physically, is where I want to be. So,
and a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to just walk away at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. That's the goal.
Literally walk away.
Yeah, my dad used to tell me that. He's like, if you can walk away literally and figuratively from what you've done, like, you did good. You accomplished your goals, got to travel the world and get paid to do it, ride your bike. Like, he was ready for me to stop, I think.
Yeah, probably. All right. Well, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.